Welcome to this explainer. Okay, so for the next 7 minutes or so, we are going to drop right into what is arguably the deepest, most baffling puzzle of your entire existence. We're talking about consciousness and the cosmos. The goal here is to build a wholesome first principles understanding of what consciousness actually is, why it exists at all, and why it stubbornly remains the ultimate mystery in human knowledge. So settle in, because this gets absolutely fascinating.
I want you to pause for a second. What is it actually like to be you right now? Like, really think about it. Think about the immediate, visceral reality of a powerful song you love, or a sudden vivid memory from your childhood, or even a private physical pain like a stubbed toe. It all seems so immediate, right? It's entirely obvious to us. And yet, notice how this completely obvious, everyday feeling becomes incredibly slippery the exact moment you try to explain what it actually is to someone else. It's like trying to catch water with your bare hands.
So, let's kick things off with Section 1, the puzzle of being you. We are stepping right onto this wild boundary between what can be neatly observed from the outside and what can only ever be known from the inside. To make sense of this, we need a rock-solid definition. So, consciousness isn't just about being biologically alive or processing information the way your laptop does. No, it is the felt presence of experience. It's the miraculous, undeniable fact that experience is happening at all. It is a lived point of view that is known entirely and only from the inside.
All right, moving right along to Section 2, unpacking the actual experience. Look, if we want to stop talking past each other in these endless debates about the mind and the brain, we kind of need to separate raw data processing from actual experience. Think of it in distinct layers. At the very base layer, you have information processing. That's detecting, sorting, reacting to data, and importantly, this can happen with absolutely zero inner feel. Above that is awareness, where a scene actually presents itself, something is noticed. And then, at the very top, is self-awareness. That's not just a scene appearing, but the conscious realization that you are the specific entity noticing it. They're all related, for sure, but they are fundamentally distinct things.
Let's ground this with a simple comparison. Take a standard smart thermostat in your house. It detects the temperature in the room and reacts to it perfectly. That is pure information processing. But we don't think the thermostat needs a therapy session because it's feeling a little too hot today. It doesn't have an inner life. But for you, a waking person, the world vividly and constantly shows up. That subjective showing up, that inner movie playing in your head, is the core difference between a biological machine and a conscious mind.
Okay, so there are 5 irreducible truths to your experience. Let's run through them. First, it is purely subjective. Your private ouch belongs only to you. Second, it's filled with contents, much like a movie playing continuously on a screen in your mind. Third, it is structured by attention. Think of it like a spotlight, zooming in on one specific voice in a crowded, incredibly noisy kitchen. Fourth, it's anchored by a sense of self. It acts as a center of gravity, holding the whole shebang together. And fifth, it constantly shifts in intensity.
And that last point is absolutely crucial, because experiencing the world isn't just a simple binary toggle switch flipping between asleep and awake. It behaves way more like a dimmer knob or a sophisticated camera lens. Think about when you just had way too much coffee, or conversely, when you're completely exhausted after a long day. Your reality blurs, it sharpens, it widens, and it fragments depending on your state. It's dynamically adjusting all the time.
If you strip away all the complex, scientific, and philosophical jargon, there is one core anchor you absolutely must hold on to for the rest of this explainer, and it's this. Consciousness is the fact that a world is appearing to someone. It is that simple, and yet profoundly complicated.
Which brings us to Section 3, science versus philosophy.
Why do scientists and philosophers always seem to be arguing endlessly about this topic? Well, it's simply because they're using totally different tools for entirely different jobs. Take Maya, for example. When Maya hears a powerful, emotional song from her childhood, science can meticulously map the exact networks firing in her brain, right? The auditory system detecting patterns, memory networks lighting up like a Christmas tree. But philosophy steps in to ask a much harder question. Why do those purely physical electrical signals actually produce the invisible, deeply felt emotion of nostalgia from the inside?
The tools naturally divide across 3 levels of questioning. Science is absolutely incredible at describing what happens, like a specific brain region lights up. It also tells us what its evolutionary function is, such as pain protecting the body from damage. But philosophy presses hardest on the 3rd level, experience itself.
You can map the exact neural circuitry of pain for decades, but philosophy asks about that stubborn, leftover sting of the pain. Why does it actually have to feel bad? Think of brain imaging like a highly advanced weather app on your smartphone. It tracks atmospheric patterns, it correlates massive amounts of data, and it predicts the coming storm perfectly. But predicting a storm on a digital screen is entirely different from the wet rain, the bone-rattling thunder, and the lived, shivering reality of actually standing out in a downpour. Science tracks the intricate patterns flawlessly, but it doesn't necessarily explain the wetness of the rain.
Let's look at Section 4, the map and territory.
This right here brings us to a massive paradigm shift in how you should view the mind moving forward. Imagine a breathtakingly perfect map of a sprawling city. It shows every single street, every building, every traffic flow in stunning detail. Science gives us exactly this kind of perfect map of neural patterns. But philosophy asks if looking at a map can ever truly explain the visceral feeling of walking those neon-lit streets at midnight. The map, no matter how detailed, is not the lived city.
You absolutely need both of these approaches to grasp the full picture. Without science, you completely lose the physical story. You have no hard data, no measurements, no mechanics. But on the flip side, without philosophy, you risk assuming the puzzle is completely solved before you even understand what a full explanation requires. There are essentially two essential lenses looking at one unified, beautiful mystery.
And finally, Section 5, why this changes everything.
By understanding the edges of this mystery, you aren't just memorizing definitions. You're building a fundamentally new way of thinking. When you read breathless, hype-filled headlines about a new AI behaving intelligently, or if you're debating the ethics of animal minds, you now have the conceptual tools to distinguish mere complex programming from actual, undeniable inner experience. You can finally tell the map from the lived territory. It's a real game changer.
The mystery hasn't disappeared, but it has a clear, defined shape now. And it leaves us with the ultimate provocative question. How does a physical system ever become a lived perspective? Like, how do biological neurons firing in the absolute dark of your skull ever give rise to the vibrant, colorful, emotional feeling of being you? Think about that the next time you simply open your eyes. Thanks for exploring this with me today. Keep wondering and keep learning.